Most people believe that the biggest barriers to reaching their goals are a problem with procrastination or a problem with being lazy. But what if I told you that you're not a procrastinator and you're not lazy? The real reason you're not taking action is because you're burnt out. I'm Salim, I've done an undergrad and postgraduate degree, and now I'm a final year medical student. And a few years ago at uni, I experienced burnout. I didn't have the mental or physical energy to get on with everything I had to do, and I started falling behind. But over the years, I figured out the best way to bounce back from burnout so that I can make consistent progress towards my academic and personal goals. So I'll go through a 4-part strategy called the momentum method. It's made to help you break free from burnout so that you'll always have the energy to keep moving towards your goals. And the second to last step is especially useful if you're a high achiever, so stick around until the end. So let's start with a question. How can you know if you're actually burnt out? Most of the time, you might not even realize why you feel drained. And because of that, it's easy to automatically label yourself as lazy or as a procrastinator. And when you do this without recognizing the real issue, it becomes much harder for you to make the right changes to improve. Personally, when something's wrong, I try to figure out the cause of it so that I can fix it logically. And I found this especially useful for burnout. So the first thing you need to do is identify and acknowledge your burnout. And there's a simple way to do this. Write down everything you get done, big or small, and label it. Red for things that drain your energy or is bad for you, orange for things that feel neutral, and green for things that recharge you or are good for you. Next to this, also write down how you felt after doing those things, whether that was feeling fatigued or demotivated or the opposite. Something that was interesting to me was that after I finished a planned study session or editing a video, I didn't actually feel mentally drained. If anything, I felt good knowing that I got a lot of work done. And it might be the same for you, where after a good study session, you probably feel satisfied. It's energizing and not draining, and you don't ever really regret having a productive study session. But on the other hand, I noticed that when I spent time on my phone, or if I studied all day and all week without breaks, then I noticed the more negative feelings of overworking myself. Identifying the exact cause of your burnout might be surprising to you when you take this conscious effort to acknowledge it. So don't tell me you're too busy to spend 5 to 10 minutes a day tracking this. It's going to save you a lot more time in the long run. So if you really want to help yourself, start with this. Now that you know what's draining your energy, the next step is learning how to recover it. And this isn't just about getting rest like by sleeping or watching TV. Instead, this is by using the 80-20 energy rest split. And this works perfectly with the first point of the video, which I'll get to later. Because first, you might have heard of something in the study space called the 80-20 rule or the Pareto principle, where 80% of the results comes from 20% of your input. And that 20% might be using the right study technique or by focusing on the high yield topics. Now, in a completely different and irrelevant way, I find using this 80-20 rule instead as a time split to help rebuild energy, so that I can maintain a good amount of studying or doing work not just over a few days, but over weeks and months. So how does this look? This would be splitting my day into a series of 80-20 splits, which might be 80% work for about 2 hours, then 20% on an intentional rest, like practicing the piano or going for a drive. It's important to realize that your split might look completely different to mine, and that's the point. It's about what works best for you, which is why it works well with a more personalized first section of the video. Because after you identify and acknowledge what gives you energy and what takes it away, you'll know what two things pair well together to have a balanced split. For example, with me, I said that a good study session makes me feel good after, and for you it might too, or it might not right now, especially if it's exam season. So that could mean pairing something else that you know feels good for you with that 20% part of the split, which could be something as simple as going on your phone to message your friends. This approach keeps you from stacking energy draining activities back to back. Instead, you're giving yourself time to top up some of the lost energy throughout the day. Now that you have a routine to avoid burnout, how do you actually bounce back from it? Something I noticed with a lot of medical students or people that see themselves as perfectionists is that they try to do a lot. They try to study multiple subjects each day, work on publishing papers, go to placement, and deliver life outside of all of that. And that quickly ends up paralyzing them because everything becomes overwhelming. But if you've been burnt out, jumping straight from 0 to 100 doesn't make sense. Even though it might feel like you need to keep up with everything in life, it's only going to set you back. Because what you should do instead to get back into the rhythm of doing things is to have the mindset that something is better than nothing. Perfection is the opposite. It follows an all or nothing approach, where if you can't do something perfectly, you don't even see a point in trying. But the something is better than nothing mindset is about breaking that all or nothing cycle by instead committing to small, non-negotiable tasks. And what does this mean? For me, this would be making sure to practice the piano every day without fail. Even if I can't spend a whole hour, I'll make sure to practice for just 10 minutes. I say this to a lot of friends trying to go to the gym that get overwhelmed by it, because I just tell them that if you can't do that just yet, do 10 push-ups, because 10 push-ups is 10 more than 0. So for you, this might be doing 5 practice questions if you can't commit to an hour of studying. These are small wins, and small wins build momentum, and as you shift your focus to progress over perfection, you'll build confidence in yourself, making it easier to take action as time goes by. Now the last step of this method is to protect you from falling back into burnout, and it's something a lot of high achievers struggle with. What I noticed was that people that want to make progress end up saying yes to a lot of things. They take on that project that was suggested to them, they spend all their free time to study even more than they already are, or they say yes to joining any academic event or society that's vaguely interesting to them. This is going to put you back into burnout, so to avoid this trap, you need to set boundaries to protect your energy. The best way I've found to know what to say no to is by having a list of the different parts of my life. For example, that could be my physical health, my academic life, work life, or personal life. If one area, like academics, starts to outweigh everything else, I cut back to restore balance, and that means saying no to extra commitments. For you, this might be saying no to meeting friends you recently just met, or saying no to taking on another project at school or university. Burnout often comes from overcommitting, so by setting boundaries you protect your time and energy to make regular recovery. And by tracking your habits like we talked about earlier, you'll see exactly what's worth saying no to. These 4 levels, identifying burnout, rebuilding energy, doing more than nothing, and setting boundaries, create a strong loop to help you bounce back from burnout. But once you're in the rhythm of making progress, the next step is to make the most of your study time, so that you can work smarter, not harder. Over my 8 years at university, I've tested hundreds of study tips and hacks to boost my productivity as a student, but only a handful of them actually delivered results. And in this video here, I share these specific study tips that helped me consistently improve both in my academic and personal life, and it's going to help you do the same. So click the video to learn more.